Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time!
Three on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Ayler's gone! Come on, touchdown, Indy! Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now!
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Oh, now, here's Jim Coyle.
Hey, welcome aboard. Welcome in. You made it. It's the end of the week. Happy Friday, everybody. Glad to have you along and glad to be with you here. Jim Coyle on this Friday. Looking forward to another fun day with you. It's Alec Lasley will stop by, Zach Osterman, and Sam Michael from WJOB up north has continued interest in the possibility of Indiana adding a second NFL team. What's the actually likelihood? Is it just being used to get more of what they want in Illinois? I will see. We'll talk about that, but plenty to get to as well. Huge day for the NCAA with a couple of preliminary injunction hearings in each sport. Ironically, that the Bediako case is the one I'm more interested in. The Joey Aguiar, he's a quarterback in Tennessee. I don't know. I don't know enough of all of the details on that one. I know that it's a JUCO field, but this dude played 3 years at JUCO. 3. Get out of here. Charles Bediako is the basketball player at Alabama that played in the NBA. Not a lot, but it doesn't matter. Russell says it's snowing in Fort Wayne. Well, I did see that we were supposed to get some more snow, so not sure how widespread that's supposed to be. When you got as much as we already have, I'm like, does it matter? Unless it's really coming down. Well, yeah. Especially with the warm weather heading our way. I'm so excited, but it's supposed to be the high today in upper 30s. So that seems like a warming trend, no doubt. But hey, it's Friday, so if it's going to snow, I guess Indiana basketball back on the court tomorrow. We'll talk about that as they host the Wisconsin Badgers. Badgers? We don't need no stinking Badgers. I know I say that before, but it's one of my favorites. But for those of you that don't know it, Clint Eastwood, baby, is all I can tell you. Trying to quickly find the schedule for this weekend. The set of games, especially within the Big Ten Conference. Nothing on Friday night. But tomorrow, it's a little bit busy day. Nebraska travels to Rutgers, which that should be no issue for the Cornhuskers. Rutgers not having a good season. I mentioned Wisconsin coming to Bloomington. That is a noon contest on Fox. Oregon is at Purdue. That should be an easy win for Purdue. Oregon, the worst team in the Big Ten. But a game to watch tomorrow night. Illinois at Michigan State. Whoo, baby. That should be a fun one. Hey, will Jeremy Fears trip anybody? He's got this Grayson Allen thing going on, man. Hey, there's no one that loves to compete more than I did, and you ain't cheating if you ain't trying kind of a thing, but there's still a line. dude crosses the line. Can't do that. You deserve an elbow to the temple. Sorry. That's how it was. Well, Washington also plays at UCLA. Don't want to miss that big West Coast matchup. Then on Sunday, a whole nother swath of games. USC, after getting their first win in 3 games at home, travel to Penn State. Michigan goes to Ohio State. That game may be a little more interesting than you think. Maryland at upstart Minnesota, who Minnesota I don't think has a snowball's chance in hell of making the tournament, but they have 3 really good wins. And I don't think that includes the win over Indiana. Most recently, beating Michigan State. Northwestern heads to Iowa. There's another easy win for the Hawkeyes. So there's your weekend slate of games that'll be coming up. Right now, of course, Illinois and Michigan standing tall at the top of the conference standings. Both at 11-1. Nebraska, Michigan State, 9-2 and 9-3. So 1 half and 2 games back. Yeah, I mean, they're separating themselves, which there's plenty of time because there's games that are going to be going across. But let's see. Purdue is in 5th. Wisconsin, talk about the Badgers coming into Bloomington. They're 6th in the Big Ten right now. And the first team that's not ranked. They're 16-6 overall. 8-3 in conference play. What do they do on the road? Yeah, man, they're 3-2 on the road. So this is going to be it's going to be a battle for Indiana, but it's a battle they need to win. I mean, losing at USC is not a fault. It just would have been a good game to win. And it makes these games kind of more, this is not a have to, but it's kind of close to you really need to win this game, because if you don't win this game, do you have to then win the Michigan State game? I'm just thinking they have to do just one thing to just get over that midpoint right now. And they're down in no man's land, in what I call no man's land in the Big Ten Conference standings. They are the last team that I see with a chance to make it into the NCAA tournament out of the Big Ten Conference. And they are at 6-6. Guess who has the same record? USC. Well, if that came down to a decision between those two, guess who gets the win? So that's why they've got to make it up. They've got games coming up, though, with teams above them. Ohio State, Wisconsin, of course. The return with Purdue, but that's a tough ask up at Mackey. Michigan State will come in. You've got to go to Illinois yet. So their remaining games are plenty against that upper echelon, with some lower ones mixed in for the wins. Brian asking, is it football season yet? Hey, is it never not football season anymore? It's nonstop. Before I forget, Brian Haynes up for the Broyles Award, which I believe is named today, this evening, one of the two, down in Fort Smith, Arkansas, or Hot Springs, Arkansas. I can't remember which, but it is now set up down there. The Winter Olympics. Wish I had the Olympic music to play. Get underway. Actually, they're already underway. Women's hockey is already underway. The opening ceremonies are tonight. Coming to you from Milan, Cortina, Corleone. Just kidding. There's no Corleone. Over 3 million cubic yards of artificial snow will be brought in, the fake stuff, to augment the snow that they have in the Italian Alps. But there's just not enough because rising temperatures and whatnot, it's been an issue. In Beijing, 100%, back in 2022 in Beijing, 100% fake snow was used. So the 2030 games will be held in the French Alps, FYI. But all those festivities getting underway tonight, which opening ceremonies, I guess, watching a bunch of people walk in, I know, hey, if that's something to watch, great. I will not be watching that. Here's a shocker from the SEC. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey has officially commented on the Charles Bediako case, the Alabama basketball player, at least through court documents. Sankey called for the courts to uphold the NCAA eligibility rules, saying Bediako should not be allowed to play for Alabama. Hey, that is shocking. He then explained his reasoning behind the thought process. Greg Sankey getting on board. I was wondering which way that was going to go. I respectfully asked the court to uphold the NCAA eligibility rules challenged in this case, which are essentially to the integrity of college sports, to the educational mission they serve, and to the opportunities they provide for current and future student athletes. Greg Sankey. Yeah, he's kind of in a no. If he had said anything other than that, the NCAA president coming out and saying, "Hey, teams that are doing this are trying to play by a different set of rules." So that would have put him at odds with, and it's unusual, but good to see. But I mean, what else would Sankey say? No, you never know. We'll find out. Let's see. It'll take place just hours before Alabama heads across the state to take on Auburn. That hearing today. And then you've got the Joey Aguiar, which he's not going to comment on that one. Number one, it's football. This is basketball. He won't get his head cut off for saying something bad about basketball. But if it's football, baby, that's a different story. Hey, I've got to take a quick break. Time slipped away, having so much fun. Alec Lasley joining us up next from thehoosier.com. We'll talk more about this weekend and a whole lot of other things. Appreciate you being with us. Back with more. Roll it on right after these messages.
Andy Moore Honda Bloomington has the deals for you, like great savings on the remaining 2025 Hondas. First-time buyers get more than expected. The Honda Civic and HR-V are the most popular vehicles for first-time buyers in the U.S. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington also has a quality selection of pre-certified used vehicles. And check out the selection of Andy Moore Honda Bloomington's 2026 models, like the Honda Passport, Honda CR-V Hybrid, Honda Ridgeline, and more. ISB Radio with Jim Coyle is brought to you exclusively on The Zone by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemoreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Bored, Bloomington? Dave & Buster's can fix that. Eat and drink your way through our all-new menu. Play half-price games every Sunday through Thursday. Watch all your team's wins on a 40-foot screen and 30 HD TVs. And level up with the high-flying human crane that puts you in the game. Private game suites, our exclusive arena, and more. Only at Dave & Buster's on 731 South College Mall Road.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. You made it to the weekend, joined now by Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com. Alec, Indiana basketball had their win streak snapped at USC in another hard-fought game, but they just ran out of legs, maybe that extended overtimes from the UCLA game, but they tried. But, man, Lamar Wilkerson got zero help from no one.
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate how, I mean, the game almost looked like the last probably 2 minutes almost looked like a replica of the UCLA game, how UCLA came back at the end, right? Just the kind of the 10-point lead late that Indiana blew to go into overtime. And then on the flip side, right, USC had multiple double-digit leads in the second half, led by as much as 14. Look, I think I put out there right after the game, I thought the grit and the gutsiness once again of this team showed in kind of middle portion of the second half. I caught a lot of flack for that because they're like, well, if they were gritty and tough, right, they wouldn't have gone down by 14 in the first place. I think there's 2 ways to look at it. That's the small sample size, right, of the kind of 7-minute swing there early in the second half shouldn't take away from what I thought overall was a pretty tough team that went in there and tried to battle, right? I mean, there's too many times where we see East Coast teams or Midwest teams, right? Anyone on the Eastern time zone go out West in the second game of that 2-game West Coast swing, they get blown out or they lose, right? So that's not an indicator of, where Indiana's at. I thought the fact that they were able to come back from a 14-point deficit, then from a 10-point deficit, right? They kept cutting it to about 2 possessions, and then the lead kept going up. They were too tired. They had too much energy that was put into that UCLA win, and then they had too much energy that was put into trying to come back from multiple double-digit point deficits. It was just too much to overcome, and I think that showed with the second half defense. I mean, USC shot, I think it was 60% from the field in the second half, and the biggest thing was they didn't miss 3 consecutive shots. And when you're trying to come back from a double-digit deficit, multiple double-digit deficits, you need to be able to get 3 stops in a row. And Indiana was never able to get 3 stops in a row. It was always 2, and then USC would score. And so no matter what Indiana did on the opposite end of the floor, they just were not able to get that 3rd stop. Obviously, they cut it to 2, I think with about 30 seconds left, missed some free throws, and then it was over at that point. But look, I mean, I think if you told anyone they were going to be 1-1 coming back home, you would take that in a heartbeat. So that's 3 out of 4, obviously, that they've won. 2 really, really big wins against UCLA and then Purdue. I think, these next 2 games are going to be critical to one, not look ahead to that next 2-game stretch of at Illinois, at Purdue, but to make sure that you hold home court. And we've seen how difficult it is to win on the road, right? I mean, Michigan State just lost to Minnesota. It happens all the time in the Big Ten, probably more so than anywhere else. But Indiana needs to be able to come away with 2 straight wins here So they feel good about going on the road, and they feel good about getting another notable win, which would be obviously Wisconsin on Saturday here. But I think, again, if you zoom out on that West Coast trip, you're pretty happy about the performance that went in to that. Nick Dorn isn't going to shoot 60% from three every single game, right? He's also not going to shoot 2 for 12. So the biggest thing that you need to look at now is obviously taking a lot of positives from that trip. Hopefully, getting something out of Tucker DeVries the last 9 games of the season here, and carrying over the momentum from these last 4 games into what's a critical 2-game stretch here at home before going back on the road.
Yeah, with Tucker DeVries, you have to ask, is this a shooting slump? Is it a poor shot selection slump? Is it being asked to do too much slump? I don't know, but he has not. This has gone on a while. This is not 1, 2, or 3 games. This has been an extended thing that is, well, it's handcuffed this team, because the thing they didn't have earlier was a third guy. Nick Dorn comes out, emerges, and becomes not the third guy, but hell, he's the second guy and playing quite well. And if they had that third guy now in Tucker DeVries, they would have still won. They might have won that game, even though they were tired as hell. And another game along the way. But all that aside, they still have plenty of opportunity, like tomorrow's game, for example. I earlier I said it's not necessarily a must win, but if they lose, it forces there are some must wins coming up.
I think it is a must win. Again, if they kept one of those other 2 games of Iowa or Nebraska at home, right, I think that would have shifted things in terms of what they needed to do in these 2 games. But a win against Oregon is not going to do anything for you. That's a must win from the standpoint of you just can't lose that from the worst team in the Big Ten. The Wisconsin game is, I think, a must win, because once again, you only have really 2 notable wins on your schedule right now, on your resume, which is Purdue, UCLA. You need to be able to continue to build off of this momentum that they have, because there's only, you have the Ohio State game at the end of the season, but that's
Michigan State at home is going to be a tough one, but a great opportunity.
Yeah. So you look at those 3 ranked opponents that are left. And not to say that you can't win at Purdue. I don't think this Indiana team is going to go into Illinois and win, but you never know. I mean, the way Illinois is playing over the last 3 weeks has been astronomically different than what they looked like at the beginning of the season. So they are peaking at the right time. That looks like a legitimate title contender. That's going to be tough to win on the road. I think you look at Purdue, right? They had a phenomenal game plan in that first matchup, and I think they match up very, very well with that Purdue team. And create some really, really bad matchups for Purdue. So I'm not going to throw that one out. Obviously, it's going to be tough to sweep Purdue, going to be tough to win at Mackey, and especially the way that some of those guys played in the first matchup. Purdue's going to want to come out with a fire under them to win that game, but I think that's doable. And then Michigan State, right? They seem to be one of the more inconsistent teams over the last 2 weeks in the Big Ten, and that inconsistency goes from half to half, not just game to game. We saw the horrible first half that they played against Michigan, and then they come back, almost take the lead in the second half before falling, and then a bad first half against Minnesota, really dig their way out in the second half, but ultimately lose that. So that's a game that could go either way, but you don't want to rely on having to get 1 or 2 of those games, because that's going to be difficult in itself to do. So that's why I do think this Wisconsin game is a must win, because it gives you a little bit of breathing room and flexibility when you look at the remainder of the schedule, because there aren't a lot of kind of 50-50 games in terms of swing games that you can really look at and say, hey, if they win that's really going to boost their resume. Northwestern's not going to do that. Minnesota, not really going to do that. They still are a team that is a little bit weird when it comes to metrics. So, I mean, maybe you look at that Ohio State game at the end of the year, but you don't want to go into the final game of the season needing a win from a team that is clearly on the bubble, because Ohio State is more on the bubble at the moment than Indiana is when you look at all the metrics and the numbers. So they're going to be fighting for their life at the end of the season. So I think need to win this Wisconsin game. Give yourself a little bit of breathing room, build off of that, maintain home court when you play Oregon, and then try to steal one, maybe at Purdue, and then make sure that you hold down home court the remainder of the season with, I think there would be 3 home games left coming down the stretch there.
Yeah, 8 total games left. And right now, I think a 9-9 conference mark gets you into the tournament. Or was it 10-10 rather? They played 20 games. I think 10-10 will get you in, but that 10th win, it's going to have to come against either Wisconsin, at home against Michigan State, or on the road at Ohio State. So that's the trickiness there. They've got to win one of those games, and winning against Wisconsin, it takes all the pressure off of you. If they win that game, I believe that they can play par golf the rest of the way and make it into the tournament. Now, that's not to suggest that that's how you approach it. You have to approach it in a much different fashion, of course, to win, to do better than that. But getting to the tournament this year for this team, what they've gone through, I think would be an achievement, especially coming out of the damn Big Ten.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you have to assume that this is going to be, the least talented team that he would have as well with this staff. And I think, the one thing that they've really learned this year is and I think it was the last radio show that Darren DeVries had with Don Fisher. So a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I think, because of the West Coast swing there. But it was the last radio show where I think he was talking about some of the things that he learned going through the Big Ten for the first time. And a lot of that centered around him talking about the physical play of the front court. That's one thing that obviously, the Big Ten's physical. You know that you need a strong physical front court and depth there. But that was one thing that I think really stood out when he was talking to when he was talking to Don Fisher, was going through the Big Ten for the first half of the season. He really recognized that you need a lot more depth at the front court position and a lot more physicality. Obviously, with this roster, you don't have either. And so I think that's one thing going into, if you are able to make the NCAA tournament, right, going into next year and the year after, the roster is going to look vastly different from that standpoint. And I think you're going to get a lot more talent from that standpoint, because they're going to, orchestrate a few different ways to really build that front court. You have, right, everyone has been, hard on Reed Bailey this year, and there's a lot of truth to that, right? He's missed a lot of quote unquote, right, gimmies at the rim and the physical play that he hasn't been able to necessarily show. I think a lot of people still need to remember he's playing out of position, right? He's not a true center. He's a power forward at heart and a hybrid forward. And you've been able to see that versatility come out in some of those matchups, specifically against Purdue, obviously UCLA, where you don't maybe have traditional fives on the floor. And you have a lot more of those kind of 6'8", 6'9" hybrid 4-5 guys, which is what Indiana has. And he's been able to take advantage of those matchups and have phenomenal games. So I think you look at potentially what Indiana would be next year from a roster constructive perspective, and that's more what you would be getting. Obviously, with the insertion of Nick Dorn into that lineup has really helped Reed Bailey in terms of the floor spacing and opening up the middle of the floor with a lot of those slips. But yeah, I mean, making the NCAA tournament's an absolute must in year one. They've set themselves up to be in that position. Now it's about closing here in the final couple of weeks of the season to ensure that they are in there, because you never know what happens. Obviously, once you get in there, a couple bounces go your way, a couple bounces don't go, your way. You get a hot shooting night one night and you build off of that. And I've said this multiple times. I don't think Indiana's a team that anyone wants to face in a tournament setting where you have a quick turnaround and you have, maybe 24 to 36 hours to truly, scout a team, especially if this team can get hot shooting the ball, which they've shown they can do. I think it's going to revolve around what Tucker DeVries can do here down the stretch. And if he's able to just play at a more consistent rate, shooting the ball to add that third additional score because the inconsistencies around Peyton Conaway are still there. Inconsistencies around some of the other players are still there in terms of what they can provide game in and game out. You need a veteran like Tucker DeVries to be able to elevate his game in February and in March. If not, right, it's going to be a real 50-50 shot on if this team will make the tournament and if they will actually make some noise by winning maybe a game or anything like that come March.
Chris is asking, or says, great show as always. Thank you. Appreciate it. Give credit all to all of you guys and the guests. But in my opinion, and I'll ask Alec as well, how many wins gets Indiana into the tournament? He feels like that they have to steal one at Purdue or Illinois. He knows everyone's important, just thinking realistically. No, I disagree with having to win one of those games because those are just gigantic asks. And I don't see it happening, but I don't think that they have to do that much. They just have to, like we've been talking about, a win over Wisconsin allows you to play par golf the rest of the way. That, to me, that puts them in the bottom. They will be in partly because of how tough the Big Ten is this season, and the teams above them are all good. And they have better metrics than, even though they lost to USC, their metrics are substantially better. That's the one thing that's going in a positive for this team that has not been that way recently in the past. Their metrics love Indiana. So I just think winning the Wisconsin game is important, like Alec is saying. And I'm not saying it's not a quote-unquote must-win. The reason I would hesitate there is because there are one or two other opportunities, but then the pressure ramps up. So doing it now gets it off your back, and to me, that win alone would put Indiana in as long as they don't lose to Oregon, lose to Northwestern, lose to Minnesota. Because the Ohio State game at the end of the year on the road, which yet another good opportunity, I don't think you're going to be faulted as long as you've done what I talked about up till that point.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you look at they have 5 home games left. 4, if not 5 of those are all winnable games. The one that's probably more of a toss-up than anything I would say is Michigan State. Obviously, you have Minnesota in there that already beat Indiana earlier this year at Minnesota, but Wisconsin, Oregon, Northwestern, Michigan State, Minnesota are the 5 home games. I think you look at those 5, and this is the time of year where you need to win at home, and all 5 of those are absolutely winnable games. And I think again, if that Michigan State game went like it did for the first 30 minutes of the game and stretch that out through the remaining 10, right, you're looking at probably a much different Indiana team just in terms of what people have their opinions on when Michigan State comes to town, because again, that game was tied at 53 all midway through the second half. And I know obviously a game's not 30 minutes. I know a game's not 35 minutes, right? But it's not like that was Michigan State being in total control for all 40 minutes. I mean, Indiana was doing some phenomenal things against Michigan State there for the first 30 minutes before it just kind of all fell apart. So I think, again, you have to look at 5-3 absolutely gets you in, 4-4 probably gets you in. But I think you have to go 500 at the bare minimum to get in. And I still think you probably would need a little bit of help, because that means you probably don't win Illinois, Purdue, Michigan State. And that means you probably drop either Wisconsin, Minnesota, or Ohio State. And so that leaves you with maybe one quality win out of the remaining 8 if you do go 500. So I think 5 wins, 5-3 is a good kind of barometer to look at what they probably need to do to feel safe and not have to go on a run in the Big Ten tournament. Because again, we're still forgetting, potentially winning, maybe 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, right? Because you're going to have a lot of opportunity where Indiana's at in the rankings.
Right.
They're going to play those middle of the pack teams in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, no matter what happens. That means
that should put them over 20 wins by the time they get to the end of the regular season and 1 or 2. And if you win 20, if you're a 20 game winner from the Big Ten, there is no way you're not going into the NCAA tournament this season.
And if that means you probably are going to play an Iowa or a UCLA or a USC or a Wisconsin or an Ohio State in your first round game of the Big Ten tournament, all of those teams are either right on the bubble or on the inside of the tournament field. So that's going to.
But that makes it dangerous as well.
In what way?
Well, because they're fighting for their lives also.
Well, no, fair. But I'm saying that it gives you another chance. It's not like you're playing.
Oh, absolutely.
At the bottom feeders of a Rutgers or an Oregon there, or even like a Northwestern. Right, you're going to have another couple opportunities if you do win those games. So either way, though, I think 5-3 is what you need to shoot for to feel really good about Selection Sunday there. Which is crazy that we're already talking about it.
What are you talking about? We just finished football like less than 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was talking about that. I'm like, how nuts is this? And then next year will be a little bit closer. It will have only been a week and a half ago that the damn football season ended. Anyway, Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com with me right now. We've got more coming up. Appreciate you being with us. Back with all of that and more right after this.
The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC. Local lives here.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemoreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington has the deals for you, like great savings on the remaining 2025 Hondas. First-time buyers get more than expected. The Honda Civic and HR-V are the most popular vehicles for first-time buyers in the U.S. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington also has a quality selection of pre-certified used vehicles. And check out the selection of Andy Moore Honda Bloomington's 2026 models, like the Honda Passport, Honda CR-V Hybrid, Honda Ridgeline, and more. ISB Radio with Jim Coyle is brought to you exclusively on The Zone by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Dave & Buster's Bloomington is the place to eat, drink, play, and watch. Enjoy half-price games every Sunday through Thursday, a new menu to dig into, and next-level upgrades like private game suites, the high-flying human crane that puts you in the game, our exclusive arena, and more. Only at Dave & Buster's Bloomington, 731 South College Mall Road.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. With you on this Friday, Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com, and the SEC distributing more than $1 billion to its schools, which is a $200 million jump from last season. But I hate these way too early top 25s because they're way too freaking early, because you don't know jack squat. I mean, you would think, even desperate as people are for clicks and looks and all of that, that after last season, you would have enough sense to not do something like that. But no, got to get right. Here we go again. Same old stuff. Texas, yada, yada, yada. Is what it is. But Indiana, for a change, being given respect as being up one of the top 4 teams, and in most any poll you look at, they're going to be competing for the Big Ten championship again. Unfortunately, Ohio State on their schedule, and I say that only because I hate to see them play twice again. It would be nice for two champions or the championship game to be two teams that didn't play each other in the regular season. But whatever, we'll see.
I kind of disagree. Look, I think
really,
right. You have the rivalry with Ohio State and Michigan. That's going to be there, obviously, throughout the remainder of college football history. That's never going to change. But the Big Ten, I think, just needed a new rivalry to come into play of kind of a up and coming program, which obviously is Indiana, which is not up and coming anymore. It's now here with a program that's been there multiple times. And look, the Ohio State fans and the Indiana fans absolutely hate each other. So you have that.
What fan base does not hate Ohio State?
But that's my point. But the Indiana fan base, there could never really be hate for them because of what Indiana football was before the last 2 years. No one even thought about Indiana fans as anything. And now you look at what they're able to do traveling anywhere and everywhere for this program. They're quickly, not from an annoyance factor, right? Because I don't think Indiana fans have really, been quote unquote annoying like you get from other fan bases, but you're slowly or quickly now going to get opposing teams that are going to start hating the Indiana fans because of all the support that they're able to provide and basically making any potential home game for an opponent an away game at any sort of potential venue. So I think the up and coming Indiana Ohio State rivalry could be, really, really good for college football and specifically the Big Ten, right? Because these are two teams that now look like they're going to be there not only in the Big Ten championship year in and year out, but potentially there in the semifinals and the national championship game, kind of fighting for that consistently throughout the next handful of seasons here, especially with how Indiana's been able to reload with the transfer portal and having the number one overall class in the country, and now starting to get more and more 4- and 5-star high school recruits on campus. That's just going to build into that. And now Indiana is going to probably start trying to poach Ohio State kids that they normally would be able to get. Right. Some of these recruitments over the last handful of years where Indiana's, maybe been in the top 3, top 4, top 5 with Ohio State, right, to go the Ohio State way. We're going to slowly start seeing that go the Indiana way. And so I think it's going to start to brew a nice additional rivalry. And I think playing in the regular season and playing in the Big Ten championship, especially after what some of the Ohio State players said this year, where if they got another chance to play Indiana, they would have beaten them. I think there's just added kind of hatred there from both sides. And it doesn't hurt to obviously have what Curt Cignetti said, obviously, again, when he first got the job about beating Ohio State and obviously having that come to fruition in the Big Ten championship. So I like it, right? I think Indiana doesn't really have, let's be honest, a rival in football now moving forward, because Purdue doesn't look like it's, getting any better. And so I think, trying to form any sort of rivalry that it can is great for obviously college football, but I think specifically the Big Ten, having Indiana and Ohio State there.
I don't disagree. And next season, Indiana's schedule could be pretty formidable for especially looking at ranked teams, but we don't know who's going to be what. But Nebraska, I'm not expecting much out of them because they have I don't believe in Matt Rule, number one, and they have lost it out there. And that's a great place to go get a win. Indiana could have their second consecutive win in Lincoln. That would be something. But you got Nebraska, Ohio State, Michigan right in a row next season. That's going to be a tough row. Then you get Minnesota, then they're off. Then it's USC in Bloomington before traveling to Washington. Both teams could be ranked. So that could give them a good and in North Texas. They open up North Texas, who was flirting with making the CFP last year. So solid schedule. No complaints. People can just shut up.
On the flip side, right? I mean, if you look at Ohio State, they go at Texas, at Iowa, at Indiana. I think they're at USC. Oregon comes to Columbus, and then they still have Michigan. I mean, that is a tough schedule from start to finish. Still have Illinois and I think they play maybe even at Nebraska, but I know they have Illinois.
They're at Iowa.
Yeah, at Iowa, at Indiana, at USC, and then at Texas. And then obviously still have, the Michigan, Oregon games in Columbus So, I mean, Ohio State's schedule is by no means a walk. I mean, that is a difficult schedule.
There's no doubt about that. And someone mentioned that Penn State had an easy route to go, but I didn't get that one pulled up. Unfortunately, I pulled that one off. But who cares? Anyway, Indiana recruiting going extraordinarily well. It depends on who you look at, but many think that Indiana is, they have a top 5 at minimum transfer portal class. They have a top 30 recruiting class. So, and more importantly, they're replacing the pieces that they need to replace with excellent selections. I mean, the addition in the running backs room, on the offensive line, on the defensive line, at quarterback. It is just like bam, bam, bam. It's a chess match.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Indiana's done a phenomenal job. They're off to a great start in 2027, which will probably be, their best class in program history. If it continues the way that it is. I mean, they're getting, top 150 guys in the country on campus consistently, top 200 guys, 4-star, borderline 5-star guys. And, it's a trend that's not going to stop. And it's interesting now, hearing recruits talk after visits or hearing recruits talk after they get an offer. I mean, it's an offer that they desire now and that they want. It's not, kind of a throwaway offer just to add to their offer list. I mean, it is at the top of what they're looking for now. And it's not just locally, right? It's not just in-state kids. I mean, Indiana's done a good job going out and, getting into top 3s of, high 4-star guys out west that would traditionally never look at Indiana or traditionally never look at the Midwest. So Indiana is, continuing to do a great job. The staff is obviously, set a standard of what they need and what they want. And they're not just, they're not going to change that for, a couple 5-stars that are just going to, walk through the door. They're still going to hold the same standard of what they want out of a recruit. So it's not like, anything's going to change from a culture standpoint that way. So I think you got to be excited about, what's going to come, specifically 2027 class and 2028 class. When you start to get, these 2025 and 2026 recruits in the system, in the weight room for 2 years, and then you build on that with some of the fresh talent that's going to come in the next 2 seasons, that obviously supplements what Indiana's doing transfer portal wise. And, they went down from, I think, close to 31 commits out of the transfer portal Cignetti's first year. They had 17 last year. And then I believe they have 13 or 14 this year. And it looks like they're completely done with the portal now. So, I mean, you can start to see that obviously that number continues to decrease drastically, and they're just plugging in those key players that they need with the supplement of those high school guys.
Alec Lasley from thehoosier.com. Go there today. Sign up for $1. Keep up with everything. Appreciate you, sir.
I appreciate it, Jim. Have a good one.
You as well. More coming up on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Zach Osterman with me next, right after these messages.
Andy Moore Honda Bloomington has the deals for you, like great savings on the remaining 2025 Hondas. First-time buyers get more than expected. The Honda Civic and HR-V are the most popular vehicles for first-time buyers in the U.S. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington also has a quality selection of pre-certified used vehicles. And check out the selection of Andy Moore Honda Bloomington's 2026 models, like the Honda Passport, Honda CR-V Hybrid, Honda Ridgeline, and more. ISB Radio with Jim Coyle is brought to you exclusively on The Zone by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Bored, Bloomington? Dave and Buster's can fix that. Eat and drink your way through our all-new menu. Play half-price games every Sunday through Thursday. Watch all your team's wins on a 40-foot screen and 30 HD TVs. And level all up with the high-flying human crane that puts you in the game. Private game suites, our exclusive arena, and more. Only at Dave & Buster's on 731 South College Mall Road.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. Hey, I hope all is well for you. It is for me. It's Friday. Weather's going to be warming up eventually. Not today necessarily, but it's going to get above freezing, so we've got that going for us. Always a good. The Pacers, they have their franchise center as the trade deadline approached. Knew that they needed to make a move that would coincide with their potential hopeful draft day that's coming up. But now, Ivica Zubac, former Clippers center, 7-footer, pretty damn good. He's a baller, and it's going to be a great addition. Benedict Mathurin was sent elsewhere, out to LA, I believe. But if they can, the thing I saw yesterday though is this automatically makes the team better, and they have not stopped playing. They're not tanking. They're just losing. But they have played. They went on a 3-game win streak. You don't want to see them win now. You're too close to completing this. I mean, you want to. A top 4 draft pick would be nice, but a top 3 is where you want to be. You want a choice between Darren Peterson, AJ DeBansa, or Carlos Boozer. We'll see how it ends up. But, man, now you add this piece to Tyrese coming back and the potential draft pick. The Pacers could be in the best shape they have ever. Well, I don't want to say ever. The Pacers could be in the best shape they've been in a long, long time when next season rolls around. We'll talk about that on Monday with Dustin Dopirak. Mentioned earlier, it's a huge day for the NCAA as a couple of preliminary injunction hearings going on. One for Joey Aguiar, a Tennessee quarterback, and the other for Charles Bediako, who earlier I mentioned was not in favor of his continuing to play, which is a little surprising. How about Gonzaga? Gonzaga falls to Portland the other night. Juggernaut, Portland. That happened on Wednesday. And until they join a real basketball league, I just think the Zags will always be overhyped and overhoped. Everybody gets excited every year. Oh, Gonzaga, they're going to go 20-2 again and beat barely anybody along the way and not get tested and then lose in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. Get in a real conference. Play real games consistently. That would make a huge difference, but they don't have football, so they're kind of screwed. Leaves them out in the cold a little bit. Let's see. I mentioned that. Oh, the NFL. Going to Melbourne, Australia next year. One of 9 NFL games that will be on 4 continents, in 7 countries, and 8 different stadiums. Dallas going to Rio. Just don't go swimming along the way. And ye shall be fine. Ye shall be fine. Super Bowl this weekend. Haven't even mentioned that yet. Seahawks and the Patriots. Hopefully it's a good game. Everything, there's such a big deal being made over the halftime show. Who gives a crap? I mean, yeah, it's cool, but is it? I don't care who's singing it. I mean, would I pay more attention if it was someone that I was more familiar with their music? Yeah, probably. But may I be in the kitchen or someplace else eating food? Very possibly. So it's the amount that is being made of this is crazy. On one hand, I can argue that, there's a lot of people that's not going to understand a single thing he's singing and do not know a single song. On the other hand, he's the current most popular musician in the entire world. So it will do what the NFL wants. I just mentioned 9 games internationally next year. 9 internationally. Roger Goodell is trying to change that into a global enterprise, and that helps with that. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star joining me now. Zachary, how's your week going, man?
Hey, sir, I don't know why my camera won't turn on. This computer's real finicky. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. The radio people can't see anyway, and I'm sure most people would prefer not have to see me. So there's that.
Yeah, I have a face for radio too.
Yeah, exactly, brother. I am in that category. Indiana basketball been playing well at a 3-game winning streak. Looks like they ran out a little steam at USC, and USC is not exactly a slouch. They're fighting for their tournament life as well. They had lost 3 straight at home and desperately needed a win, which they got. Indiana coming back home to play another important game against Wisconsin, which is a winnable game, number one, but also would be, I think that they get this win, they could almost par out the rest of the season and make the tournament, but they could help themselves along the way, either way. But it's kind of an important game, or not kind of, because if they lose it, then they have to make up for this game a lot.
Yeah.
If they lose.
Yeah, I mean, we talked on our podcast yesterday. Like, would a 5-0 close at home be enough to get the tournament? I think it would. I don't think they would, be pulling up trees, but I think they'd be in, and I think they'd be, kind of comfortably the right side of the bubble. I think, the trick Indiana missed at USC was that if they'd won that game, and then they'd come home and kind of completed a 2-0 homestand here, Wisconsin and Oregon. It would have felt for the first time in a while like there was clear blue water between them and the bubble. And I think that's what they missed Tuesday night, was a chance to put meaningful, tangible distance between them and teams that are genuinely on the bubble. Now, if they win these next 2, the Oregon win won't do you a ton. Oregon's terrible. You have to win that game just to avoid the loss. But if they win these next 2, they're still, I think, in a good spot. But to your point, then you've got 2 games that you would really like to feel like you don't need to win either of them, because I think they're both going to be very difficult to win. I think Illinois is a very bad matchup for this team, and I don't think Indiana can.
Bad matchup for a lot of teams.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's fair. I mean, they're in the country right now, and no Indiana team, I think, in a normal years should ever feel like Mackey Arena as a banker of a win. The point is, are Indiana's NCAA tournament hopes still kind of firmly in their own hands? Yes. Is is there some advantage to that in that, again, I think, if, you use the term like just kind of par, if Indiana just holds serve at home, is that enough to get Indiana in the tournament? I suspect the answer is yes. That's 20 wins. That's a winning record in conference play. That's, I think, maybe one more quad one plus a couple more quad twos. Your strength of schedule is not going to be a problem. Your metrics are not going to be a problem, et cetera. But this is the time of year where you don't want, like, you want to feel like games are opportunities and not stressful. And I think Indiana is still at least 2 or 3 meaningful results away from feeling like the stress is lifted, if you know what I mean, and feeling like it's, the next game isn't a must-win game. And I think that if Indiana had beaten USC, it would have been a quad one win, would have been another road win, obviously. You would have felt like maybe Indiana was starting to get to that place. And certainly if Indiana had won that and then backstopped it with wins against Wisconsin and Oregon, I think you would have felt justifiably that way. Now you do feel like, Indiana is doing enough to stay probably the right side of the bubble, but also that Indiana is still just sort of living game to game in terms of its NCAA tournament kind of outlook. And I think what you like if you're Indiana, and maybe this happens, maybe Indiana wins the next 3 and we look at USC and we say, actually, that was, in the context, that was a tough night that Indiana almost battled through but couldn't, but they got all these other results. And Indiana does kind of, maybe maintain a little bit more control of its long-term destiny. But it feels like Indiana is still winning, or is still just kind of living result to result, trying to find a way to stack enough together on its resume to get into the field.
Yeah, they don't have any bad losses, which is helping them, and they're playing in the Big Ten, which is obviously a top conference. I think they're tied with the Big 12, something like 49 or 50 quad one wins. Indiana 2-8 in that category, so they could use a little bump there. But man, they're sitting at 33rd in the net, and I'm like, okay, if you beat Wisconsin and you par out, your metrics are not going to drop much, because you're going to, if you lose to Michigan State, to Illinois and Purdue on the road, that's not going to kill you at all. So not that you should, your bar should be the bottom, but this team is going to have to just not make a huge mistake, I think, to not make the tournament.
No, I think that's fair to a certain extent. I do think it's also fair to point out there was a stretch where Indiana played 4 KenPom top 15 teams in a row and lost them all, and 3 of those games, frankly, weren't close. I don't think it's. I guess what I'm saying is I don't think Indiana's put up enough results so far to make us think that we can just assume that, to use your term, they are just going to par out, if you know what I'm saying. Like I don't think we can. I think we can look at the last 4 games, and I include the USC game in that, and see some real positive signs. Nick Dorn's, kind of evolution. Obviously, Lamar Wilkerson playing at a very high level. Reed Bailey, probably a frustrating night against USC, but of course he was so good against UCLA. I think we can, sort of say all that. I think we can look at all that and feel like maybe this team has, if not turned a corner, then at least kind of pulled some things together at a helpful time here. But I don't think we've seen enough from Indiana to assume that they are, again, to use your term, which I like, I don't think we've seen enough to just assume that they're going to par out. Like, I don't think we can assume that yet. Now, to your point about the metrics, we talked about this in the other direction for years with Mike Woodson, where Indiana was not winning the games that it needed to win early in the season to kind of establish a bit of a metric baseline, an analytics baseline, for lack of a better term. That's not a problem now. You have those wins in November and December that really kind of, they haven't calcified. If Indiana cratered from here, they'd fall out of the top 50. But they're top 35 in the net. They're top 35 in Torvik and KenPom. And as long as they keep playing the way they're playing, that's probably going to remain. If anything, you kind of look at some of these remaining home games like Oregon and Minnesota, and you say, the more style points you can win those with, the better off you're going to be, because that's going to improve the metrics. The wins themselves may not do much for you, but that is going to at least improve the metrics and sort of solidify the ground underneath your feet from an analytical perspective. But at the end of the day, making the tournament first and foremost comes down to quality wins. And this team doesn't have enough of that yet. And it doesn't have a ton of reasonable opportunities left. Wisconsin is probably going to be a quad 2 because it's at home. I don't know where Wisconsin is in the net today. They're 40th in KenPom. So now Wisconsin, it's worth pointing out, is actually playing quite well. They have managed to sort of sneak out to the fringes of the Big Ten title race. I don't think they'll win the conference, but they're 43rd in the net. So you'd need them to make a decent move up for that to be a quad 1 win. Of course, you've got Illinois and Purdue, which, as we discussed, are I think long shots just because of the matchups there. Michigan State will be safely quad 1, and Ohio State will probably be a quad 1 opportunity on the road at the end of the year as well. But like I said, I think that, if I'm casting a skeptical eye over this team, I'm just not sure. I've seen enough to believe that they've kind of pulled themselves out of what looked like a little bit of a tailspin in January. I'm not sure I've seen enough to just assume that Wisconsin, for example, or Michigan State at home, or maybe even a tricky game like a Minnesota or a Northwestern at home where the other team has nothing to lose, is just kind of an automatic win for this group. They've still got some work to do there, I think.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch the Big Ten Conference as a whole because, man, so many good teams. Of course, Michigan and Illinois have separated themselves a little bit. Illinois is really playing well right now. The play of Keaton Wagler has really stepped up for them. Michigan has been strong all year. And then you've got the likes of Michigan State and Purdue and Nebraska, who has been formidable. Hell, they went to Illinois and won, but then they lost on the return match. But, boy, this Big Ten tournament that comes up in a few weeks, this should be a hell of a lot of fun, bro.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long one. The 9 seed starts Wednesday morning.
They may have to start this a 2-week deal. I didn't know they switched back to 18 teams.
Yeah, and it's funny because people like me, people like me spend a lot of time saying, why don't all 18 teams make it? This is ridiculous. Why don't we put all 18 teams in? And I drew the long straw of putting together USA Today's Big Ten power rankings this year. Brother, we don't need all 18 teams in this. The bottom 5 in this league. So I mentioned this in my power rankings, I guess, a couple weeks ago. You obviously know Mike Nisley. Mike is a good friend. His name's James Crepia. James covers Oregon for the Oregonian. And we were hanging out with James at the Peach Bowl. And we were talking about just how, frankly, miserable the bottom of the league is. Like Penn State just got its first win. Maryland's only win this season is over Penn State. Oregon is on the longest losing streak in Dana Altman's tenure in Eugene. And James posed a question, which was, if you take the bottom 5 teams in the conference, what is the over-under in total number of wins for against the other 13? And I think we settled at 7.5. And right now they are at 1.
Oh, you meant for the season?
It's for the whole season, all 5 of them. All the 5 of them together only have to get 8 wins against the top 13. And it's February 6th, and they have 1. Northwestern beat USC. Now, if you expand that out a little bit, you go up to like Minnesota. Minnesota's beaten Indiana, Iowa, and Michigan State. Washington, I don't fully understand Washington's metric situation because they've won twice in 6 weeks, but they're still a top 45 team in KenPom. The point is, the bottom of the league is awful, and anyone who's watching those Tuesday games is a sick person. But once we get to Wednesday and certainly Thursday, it's going to be, I think, a very fun tournament.
Absolutely. And yeah, if you want to just kill some time, I guess go out and watch those early games. But yeah, there are 7 teams that all right, I won't throw Washington in. They deserve to be in there. But Oregon, Penn State, Maryland, they're just awful. Yeah. Who cares? What are you going to do? Recruiting going well for Indiana. They've got a good class set up for next year. Obviously, it's going to be a big tell on what happens in the portal for them for next year. But I'll be honest with you, Zach. I'm a little impressed with this team has done with how they've been shorthanded a lot. Whether it was the recent injury to Tate Connerway or, early on, Nick Dorn took him a long time to get going. They still don't have any depth, but yet they're right there. It's a little surprising. I think that although a lot of people would like to have seen them do better, and I get that from the fan standpoint, but with what they have, I'm like, okay, I think that I hate to use the word overachieved a little bit, but maybe they have with what they have.
Possibly. I mean, listen, I think broadly you're allowed. I don't think there's such a thing as like a year zero anymore in college sports, especially when you are, when we're talking about a place that's going to have the roster resources that, Indiana's going to have. I do still think that there's an argument sort of for a year like this, especially given how sort of tumultuous the turnover was. Some of that was by choice, but I think a lot of it was just the nature of sort of the breakdown of the fiber of the program sort of toward the end of the last coach's tenure. And we don't need to sort of over legislate that, but or re-legislate it, I should say. But this was always going to have to be a pretty substantial system shock. And I think at least just for my money, from my perspective specifically, and this is just kind of my opinion or my position, this year always needed to be a bit of a combination of results and proof of concept. And listen, I don't think it's a controversial thing to say if Indiana does not make the NCAA tournament, this year's a disappointment. Because again, just frankly, especially like if you look at the bubble this year, and I have a hard and fast rule of my own, which is not to really start looking at bracketology projections specifically until Valentine's Day, because too much is just kind of up in the air. But you can still look at like the bubble, and you can look at bracket matrix and things like that. You look at those, like the bubble is built, this year's bubble, which is incredibly high major driven. Like there's very little mid major, and there's even very little sort of opportunity for bid thieves. This year's bubble is built for a team like Indiana that has solid analytics, that, let's assume they don't pick up a bad loss at home here between now and the end of the year. They're not going to have a ton of quality wins, but there's not going to be a ton of really bad on their resume. They're going to get credit for their non-conference schedule, on and on and on. It would be a disappointment if this team didn't make the tournament. You have to, that has to be kind of a baseline for a program like this one, just about all the time, with maybe some rare exceptions in modern college basketball. I think you can say that and also say that when you look at, to your point, how this team has evolved, how certain players have gotten better, certainly when you look at like conceptually the stuff that Indiana's trying to do, the sets, the X's and O's, that kind of stuff, I certainly think you can look at that stuff and you can feel confident, or you can feel encouraged if you're an Indiana fan, that the proof of concept is there. And that, from Indiana's perspective, the future is promising, even if this team has a ceiling. Again, I don't know if that sounds I don't know if that sounds, sort of hypocritical to people or almost counterintuitive, but I do think it's possible in the same breath to say this season has already been encouraging. Again, maybe allowing for the assumption that the bottom doesn't just fall out somewhere here. While also saying if this team doesn't make the tournament, this season specifically will feel like a disappointment.
Yeah, I understand, because that's the ultimate goal. I mean, and it should be for every team every year, no matter what the circumstance. And although college athletics has changed now somewhat, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, because there are always going to be examples, whether it's Kurt Signetti or if it's Iowa. Damn, I'm drawing a blank on his name. How did I forget his name? Yeah, we talked about him so much last spring. It doesn't matter. It's the pressure is going to be there all the time. So, let's see what I was going to bring something else. Oh yeah, huge day for college athletics and the NCAA potentially, with two different injunction hearings. One for Joey Aguiar, the quarterback at Tennessee. That's a JUCO thing, which I'm like, did we not already decide that? But the other, more importantly, is the Charles Bediako, Alabama basketball player, whom Greg Sankey has come out and says he asks the court to rule in favor of the NCAA. We'll see how that goes. But man, if Bediako and Alabama were to win, that would just open the floodgates.
Yeah, I mean, this is quietly, actually, if you looked at the results of some of these eligibility cases, the NCAA was actually winning a decent amount of them when they were going at the federal level. And so if you want to be relatively craven about it, what a lot of people started doing was going judge shopping. And there's a reason why a lot of these cases are starting to get filed at the state level, is because you might get in front of an alumnus, if you're Trinidad Chambliss or Joey Aguilar or whoever, who might be a little bit more sympathetic to the idea that alma mater needs, a stable hand behind center next season. And so what's one more year? And listen, this is most fundamentally reflective of something that has just been true of college athletics throughout this period of tumultuous change and controversy, which is that no one is acting in the best interests of the wider picture. And listen, let's use Josh Heupel as an example. And I'm not picking on Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel's job is to win games. It's not to preserve the amateur model. It's not to take some, moral stand for, it's not to take some moral stand for the good of college football or college sports. Josh Heupel's going to get fired if he doesn't win enough games. And frankly, if you look at the last couple of years, Josh Heupel's probably starting to take on water a little bit in Knoxville. What can we reasonably, and I'm not absolving these coaches, but what can we reasonably expect someone in his position to do when presented with, basically this particular question of, will you take the risk of losing, proven talent at quarterback when you could maybe go to a Knox County judge or whoever and try and get that year? I do think, and that, it seemed to turn a lot of heads, I think justifiably, that you mentioned Greg Sankey basically speaking out against the idea of Charles Bediako maintaining his eligibility in college, because that did, and Sankey's far from a hero in this story, but that did feel meaningful. That did feel like someone in college athletics trying to stand up and say, I am going to act a little bit for the greater good, because this does need to stop at a certain point. And we don't have to grind into all the legal details, but one of the few arguments, at a legal philosophical level, the NCAA has been winning in the last few years, because of course we know they've been losing a lot of them, has been this idea that there needs to be some measure of protection for the idea of an amateur model. Because if there isn't, if, to your point, all the floodgates are opened and all the walls are torn down and all the rules are just sort of, disintegrated, then at a certain point, college athletics will evolve into minor league sports. And the NCAA's argument is people don't watch minor league sports because they don't. No one watches the G League. No one watches minor league baseball. I mean, maybe you pay a passing interest in it because you want to know how that, pitching prospect's doing in AA, or because, your developmental first round pick is spending some time with the Noblesville Boom. And so you're going to, or like tickets are cheap, so you're going to take your kids. But like no one cares about the G League week to week, year to year. No one watches the G League at anything resembling, whether it's in person, on TV, anywhere, the level that they watch college basketball. And the point the argument the NCAA has kind of won in different situations has been that the NCAA needs to maintain that the strength of the idea within its brand that college sports are something distinct to professional sports. And if we start tearing down these walls specifically, then I think the NCAA starts losing that argument. And here's the thing. I actually think that's a winning argument with fans too. I don't think fans want that. I don't think fans want a world where, college basketball just becomes a sort of de facto minor league system for the NBA. I think fans want there to be a distinction as well. And that's where, like, the NCAA has got to start winning these cases. And again, you can, in the specific case of Nate Oates or Josh Heupel or whoever, Pete Golding at Ole Miss, you can criticize the coach, and I have some time for that, by just saying, like, listen, this is beyond the pale. Can we please stop doing this? Can we please just stop? Because we all know this is stupid and it's wrong, and it is short-term gain for long-term pain. But in the same breath, we cannot necessarily expect those people to save college sports from itself. There has to be a bigger effort to do that. And that is where I think the Greg Sankey piece of this, which broke yesterday, I think Ross Dellinger reported it first, was really interesting to me, because that was someone in a position like that, in a position to be able to say, I am acting in the better interests of the collective here, standing up and against, frankly, the best interests of one of his schools, saying, no, I don't think we should be doing this. And I thought that was interesting, and I'm fascinated to see what kind of impact it might have.
I agree 1,000%. I think that it was very, or could be very impactful, because his words carry a ton of weight, especially down in the southeast area of the country where these judges are. Some of them are boosters of the schools, especially. So there's that. I know tomorrow you'll be out at the Simon Scott Assembly Halls. The Hoosiers are hosting the Wisconsin Badgers in an important game. Make sure you're giving Zach a follow. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, sir.
Thanks for having me. You too, Jim. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. Up next, Sam Michael from WGOB up in the region. Is it real? Is there really a possibility for the Bears to move to Indiana? And we'll see. But Indiana's sure moving forward with it. That and much more coming up on the other side right after these messages.
Dave & Buster's Bloomington is the place to eat, drink, play, and watch. Enjoy half-price games Sunday through Thursday, plus a new menu and next-level upgrades like private game suites and the high-flying human crane. Only at Dave & Buster's Bloomington on South College Mall Road.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
You're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area? You need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemoreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington has the deals for you, like great savings on the remaining 2025 Hondas. First-time buyers get more than expected. The Honda Civic and HR-V are the most popular vehicles for first-time buyers in the U.S. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington also has a quality selection of pre-certified used vehicles. And check out the selection of Andy Moore Honda Bloomington's 2026 models, like the Honda Passport, Honda CR-V Hybrid, Honda Ridgeline, and more. ISP Radio with Jim Coyle is brought to you exclusively on The Zone by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Bored, Bloomington? Dave and Buster's can fix that. Eat and drink your way through our new menu. Play half-price games every Sunday through Thursday. Watch your teams on the big screen and level it all up with the high-flying human crane. Private game suites and more, only at 731 South College Ball Road.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. It's Friday. You made it. End of the week. Hope it went well for you. Sam Michael from WJOB, Heartland Sports Network, up in the region, across Chicago and Hammond and everywhere. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you doing, Jim?
Cannot complain, man. Just trying to stay warm and waiting for this heat wave to roll in to get up into the 40s, man. How's it been up there? I'm sure it has not been a lot of fun for you guys.
No, and we get that wonderful lake effect snow. So yeah, not great at all.
Yeah, not looking forward to. I'm ready for March, late March on that, no doubt. I know you guys have been keen into this. Is Illinois just using this, or whomever, the Bears using this to bump up what they're going to end up getting from Illinois, or is there really a possibility the Bears could move to Northwest Indiana?
I think the cop-out answer is there's actually truth to both. And they did this once, back a long time ago, 40, 50 years ago in the 80s, when the rumors were the Gary Bears were going to be the new thing. And it was more realistic to go to Gary back then. There's been a couple of different sites they've looked at here in Northwest Indiana. And what's key this time is the state of Indiana is on board. I think if the Bears had their way and it was totally up to them, and you got them in a room and got them on a lie detector, they would tell you, we want to either build this stadium somewhere, either where it is now, rebuild it right around Soldier Field, or they would probably prefer, most likely, best case scenario is go to Arlington Heights and get what they want in that place. But the state of Illinois won't give it to them. The state of Indiana will. So it's a question of where exactly do you want to be on all this? I think personally, from being around here my entire life, all 30 plus years of it, I think Wolf Lake, right around there in Hammond, would be the best. You're right off the Klein Avenue Bridge and the highway and the toll road. It is super easy to get to. They could build sort of a little mini Bears city in that spot, have all these different shops and everything. There's plenty of room for that. There's a golf course nearby for early season stuff if you want to do some of that. There's some good things over there. I've seen a few proposals, but I really do think that this is at least a coin flip at this point.
Well, it sounds like it, especially because of what they could offer. And one thing that Chicago doesn't have a lot of is space. And so you made a great point. And boy, a lot of money to be made for the Bears because of all the added development that they would have a hand in on. And revenue is what it's about for professional sports teams.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's funny, we have group chats with some employees, some friends, guys who are Bears fans, and they're like, I just can't see the Chicago Bears not being in Chicago. And if you really sit down and think about it in the National Football League, it's not uncommon at all. I mean, you think about where the Giants and the Jets are, they're in New Jersey, right? You've got both of the LA teams not in Los Angeles. And there's just a number of different teams that have relocated and moved themselves. I mean, even you think about the Dolphins, it's still in Miami, but it's not in the downtown area, right? It's pushed over to the side a bit.
Basically Fort Lauderdale.
Right. And so it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon at all to see this happen. So that's been the question. I've heard guys here on the radio locally on ESPN 1000 and 670 The Score talking, what would be the legacy of the McCaskies if they were the ones who saw the Bears leave the state of Illinois and leave the city of Chicago? Would that matter? Would it be negative? And I don't know at this point. And the way things are trending from like a society type thing in terms of how often people are going to the city, what's happened to some of the businesses in the city and not being as much of a popular destination, maybe. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. And there's a lot of people don't realize how much of a population there is in what we would consider the region, which is Lake and Porter County up here. You're talking about 1 million people, or 800,000, somewhere in that range. So there's a ton of people up here. People from Chicago would come down. It's not that far of a trip. We know how often they go up to Milwaukee to see the Cubs up there play the Brewers and stuff like that. So this is an easier trip to come down here. So
it would actually be easier parking, because I told this story yesterday when I back last fall, when just at the start of basketball season, Indiana had a game in Chicago against a Marquette that I was there for, and my hotel was downtown. And so after the game, I had to go back to my hotel to get the car. And then I'm leaving right as a Bears game had just let out. And so I'm on Lakeshore Drive, and I'm like, oh my God. They're literally parking on and up and down Lakeshore Drive every which way they could park. The parking sucks around Soldier Field. It is a long walk. So it would be much more beneficial as far as convenience for people if they get past the fact that there's a state line there, this imaginary line, like you pointed out, all these different teams. But the New York teams have played in New Jersey forever. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And I talked about this yesterday. Hey, it wasn't that long ago. There was a section of Illinois that was looking to secede to Indiana. Whatever that was about. But it's craziness. But hey, it seems like that there's a definite possibility that this could happen.
Oh, and they're doing it all in the state. And there's another article out today. The Hammond mayor, Tom McDermott Jr., talking about this is serious. I mean, this isn't posturing. We are doing what we want. And in terms of what needs to be done on the side of Indiana, the mayors up here in Hammond and Gary have both put proposals out there. As we said, the governor's been involved. So they're kind of going to put this in the Bears' lap and see if they want to take it. And, you mentioned something interesting. I'm a Chiefs fan my entire life, lifelong, not just when Patrick Mahomes showed up. But the Chiefs are also finding themselves in a situation where they're going to stay in Kansas City, quote unquote, but it's going to be in the Kansas side, it sounds like. And Arrowhead Stadium, very unique the way it sits next to Kauffman and the Truman Sports Complex. It's sort of a desert of parking with these two large venues in it. And that's what makes Arrowhead so great is the ability for the fans to take over that parking lot and tailgate and all that stuff. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend doing so, and because it looks like you've only got 4 or 5 years to do it. But there's a lot of stadiums that don't have that. As a guy who's been to St. Louis a bunch of times, right around the Dome there where the Rams used to be, there was nothing. And I always asked, where did these people park when the Rams were, the greatest show on turf and everybody was showing up? There's nowhere in that city to park. So I think that is a big priority for some of these people. Wherever the Chiefs end up, anybody building a new stadium, wherever the Bears' new stadium is, you've got to have the parking, the things that make the fan experience great. It's not just about the suites and all the guys in suits and stuff who are going to, spend big dollar. The fans matter too. And hopefully these people keep that in mind.
Up in the northwest corner of the state, you guys, you carry the Indiana games. So what is the fandom up there? Purdue, Indiana, Notre Dame. You guys got a little bit of it all, plus the Chicago stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the way to say it. It's a little bit of it all. And wherever you went to school is probably who you're a fan of. And I would say it's probably of 100% of people up here, 40% IU fans, probably 35% Purdue, and whatever's left, a mixture of Notre Dame and maybe a few Butler people mixed into there, and Indiana State's a little mix as well. So people around here really got into the Indiana football thing, and so much so, as a guy who's been an IU basketball fan my whole life and just kind of casually had observed the football team. And yeah, I was definitely rooting for him here as it went down the stretch, and it was awesome to see. It was almost to me like, man, let's get this energy back for the basketball program too, because that's one of my first loves as a child. So it definitely stirred up here. It's been a popular thing for us. Some of the stuff we put out on social media pertaining to the football team has gotten a ton of interaction and people really getting all in. So right now, it's Northwest Indiana, just like the entire state, I think, is an IU thing. But we'll see. When Purdue went to the national championship in basketball a couple of years ago, they were the talk of the town. So I guess it's willing to change all the time.
I don't recall that happening.
Thankfully, they didn't win, right?
I'm just saying. I thought you were saying when they did win. I'm like, yeah, I don't recall that happening.
No, right.
But hey, I try to stay out of that fight. But I have mentioned several times this kind of laughing. Boy, rough year to be a Boiler fan. First of all, you get cooked again. I think Indiana's beat them the last 2 years like 600-3 or something. And then they have to watch them win a national championship in football when they haven't gotten one in basketball. Then right after that, they get smoked in basketball. And it's like, wow, rough year for the Boilers. But hey, they're going to be fine. They'll have a nice top 5 finish in the Big Ten, and they'll go in and win a couple of games in the NCAA tournament, and then they'll move on. And I did mention yesterday as well, I've been surprised on some of the players, football-wise, Purdue has been able to land. I'm like, wow, that's pretty good talent getting there for the success they've had in the last couple of years.
Yeah, Barry Odom's a good coach. There's no doubt. And I don't know if he's the guy that's going to take you to the college football playoff or, be a top 2 or 3 team in the Big Ten by any means. But he's a good football coach. He did some really good things at Mizzou and some other stops he was at. And I think what it's going to come down to, and I actually watched the national championship with a couple of my buddies who are Purdue fans, and they were rightfully not very, happy about it, kind of sick to their stomach, but they were talking about some of the recruiting stuff. And I said, guys, here's what it comes down to. And this is what Scott Dolson has done such a great job. And I do have faith that it's going to pay off for the basketball team like it has paid off for the football team. It's just a total investment in the NIL and being prepared for it, being organized. And then Indiana's kind of lucky. They've got some of those bigger name guys who are going to give it, like the Mark Cubans of the world. But there's also the guys you don't know who maybe even write just as big a check or close to it as Mark Cuban might have written. There's some people who have some money who have backed Indiana. So Purdue, can you get Drew Brees to kick in some money? We know he did it already with some of the practice facilities and stuff around there. Can you get some of these other guys who have a guy like Kyle Orton who made some money in the National Football League? Can he toss you a $500,000 or $1 million to help NIL? Some of these other engineers who have made pretty good money in their careers at Purdue who are just fans. Otherwise, if you can't do it, that's the game today. That's the only way you can succeed. So that'll be the real key for them. Can they close that gap financially?
Yeah, while Indiana didn't build their team on that, they will have to going forward. Mm-hmm. They're to maintain that bar, you're going to have to start getting a little bit better as far as talent to start at the starting level, and they are. The recruiting has jumped way up.
Yeah, and it's not just players either, right? It's hey, you have a great offensive coordinator. Hey, your defensive coordinator is really good. I remember one of the big things when Tom Allen was there and they had a little bit of success, and then you lose your strength coach, gets picked off to Alabama because you can't pay him. There's guys going all these different places. Coach DeBoer obviously was the great success for just a year, and then he's gone, right? So when you have an offensive coordinator like they do and a great coaching staff, Scott Dolson and company found the money to give these guys big-time extensions, and that's just as big a part of it. I mean, Indiana won a national championship this year, having a very good team. Yes, talented for sure, Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman, all that stuff. But what did they do that was so great? A lot of that stuff's like the coaching, practice. Here's how organized and how great our system is. They just played football better than everybody. I know that sounds rudimentary, right? But they didn't make mistakes. They didn't fumble. They didn't throw picks. They didn't have horrifically timed penalties. And that's on a coaching staff and players that understood each other and understood how to make other teams kind of wait them out and let them make mistakes too. So that's a big part. Yeah, get the players in the 4 and 5 stars, outstanding. But you got to be able to keep guys in the building on the staff too.
What all, for our listeners up in the Northwest, in the region, what all do you guys provide?
Yeah, we do a bunch of stuff. Obviously, you mentioned the Purdue and IU coverage. We'll run some national games too, and on the radio side. But my part of the business, so to speak, has really transitioned to what we do on the streaming video side, which is the local colleges, some Division II, NAI schools around us that we broadcast. But also the biggest part is high school sports, and we're fortunate to live in a state where people really, really care about high school sports. Basketball is at the top of that list, but people definitely love to watch their football, and even baseball and softball now have become some pretty big viewership numbers for us. So we do a ton of games every year, about 400 or 500 games in person. We've brought in technology as well. That number is probably about 1,400, 1,500 games with huddle cameras and stuff like that. So if you can't make your kid's game or your niece's game or nephew's game, guess what? You can probably watch it. It's almost hard to believe if you can't at this point. That's where the tech has gone to. So we've taken an opportunity to get into that space, and it's been really successful, and people love it. And we're trying to provide opportunities for them to be recruited, opportunities for the grandparent that lives in Florida or the dad who works shift work that can't always get to his kids' games. And just the casual fan too, the person who went to Munster, the person who went to Gary Westside or Highland where I coach at. And hey, I went there, graduated 20 years ago. I want to check in and see what my team's doing. And so we're trying to bring that attention. We always say we're kind of like a mini Big Ten network for what is going on up here with some of these conferences. We try to bring that aspect.
Well, brother, I appreciate it. Great to have you on. And make sure all of great to be a part of it, by the way. Thank you very much. And for everybody up there, make sure you're following Sam and the rest of the Heartland Sports Network. Appreciate you, my brother.
Thanks, Jim. Have a good one.
You as well. Hey, we've got more coming up. Finish her out here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday, right after these messages.
Dave & Buster's Bloomington is the place to eat, drink, play, and watch. Enjoy half-price games Sunday through Thursday, plus a new menu and next-level upgrades like private game suites and the high-flying human crane. Only at Dave & Buster's Bloomington on South College Mall Road.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
You're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area? You need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemoreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington has the deals for you, like great savings on the remaining 2025 Hondas. First-time buyers get more than expected. The Honda Civic and HR-V are the most popular vehicles for first-time buyers in the U.S. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington also has a quality selection of pre-certified used vehicles. And check out the selection of Andy Moore Honda Bloomington's 2026 models, like the Honda Passport, Honda CR-V Hybrid, Honda Ridgeline, and more. ISB Radio with Jim Coyle is brought to you exclusively on The Zone by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Bored, Bloomington? Dave & Buster's can fix that. Eat and drink your way through our new menu. Play half-price games every Sunday through Thursday. Watch your teams on the big screen and level it all up with the high-flying human crane. Private game suites and more, only at 731 South College Mall Road.
Indiana football accomplished what no other team ever has. Big Ten, Rose Bowl, Peach Bowl, and CFP national champions. The Hoosiers have etched their name into the history books as the first 16-0 team in the modern era and possibly the greatest college team ever. A limited edition of only 5,000 commemorative national championship footballs has been released. 3 full panels embossed and stamped with every championship logo and fully licensed. Get your piece of history today at the link on your screen. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. Thanks for being with us. And the link for that football, by the way, is NicoSports.com, NIKCO Sports.com. It's a pretty cool looking deal, man. That's one you want for the trophy case. Make sure you reach out. And, man, another fun day. As always, it's Friday. That makes it fun. No, don't see the sun looked out there, but it's not going to be bad. It's going to warm up eventually. As we're above 30 degrees starting Sunday, and it's going to stay there for a while, even hitting 58 with some possible rain on Tuesday, baby. The snow, you better take a picture of it. Not going to be here much longer. Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Russell. I doubt that many other people agree with that, but I appreciate you very much. And Fred as well. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate all of y'all, especially the ones that show up every day, jumping in the chat room. You guys are awesome. Tell you who's not having exactly an awesome run right now, and I'm not cracking on him. That's awful cool of you, Russell. Why do you think I'm here, he says. You're the best. Yeah, flooding up next. Flooding and freezing ice. Let it melt and then freeze. Nah, hopefully it won't be freezing. Chris Beard. Not good. It's not been a great year for not good. Not great. They're in SEC land for Michel, and the SEC, not what close to what they were last year. But where's Ole Miss? 1, 2, 3, fourth from the bottom, 3-6 in conference play. Overall, they're at 500, 11-11, right there with Mississippi State. So, and Texas A&M 17-5. That's the best of the SEC right now. Florida 16-6. They've lost 6 games already. Kentucky is 16-7. Vanderbilt, the surprise. They've got 19. They're going to get to 20 wins before any other SEC team does. It's a little amazing. It's crazy. Crazy. But, hey, big weekend coming up. Yeah, there's a big game on Sunday. Don't forget about that. I'm sure you won't. Hopefully just, yes, they are struggling. Food, baby. Food. And I need some Mexican food in my life right now. I haven't had Mexican for a minute. I have to go out and get some. Sounds like something to do. Hope you have a great weekend and all your great plans are ready to go. Are you having a Super Bowl party? I would not want to do that. That's just thinking about the cleanup. I'd rather go anywhere other than, or sit at home. I'm perfectly fine with that. Put your feet up. No lines at the bathrooms. It's all good. Yes, Russell, please hit that thumbs up. It does help the metrics. Not Indiana's metrics, ISB's metrics. Pound that like button. Appreciate you guys. It's been another fun one. Go out, have yourselves a great day. Until Monday, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.